So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wind up the show with a special treat. What's interesting is in the past, we were doing an afternoon show. So I would do interviews every now and then with Congressman Rick Crawford, and he would come on the program, and we would always have to pre-record it, right? And so welcome, but not anymore. We're live now. So welcome to the program. We got Congressman Rick Crawford is with us. Rick, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing very, very well. So just kind of tell us, I always like to talk a little Washington, D.C. with you. What's going on in D.C. I know we kind of focus on the state stuff most of the time. So what are some of the, things that you're focused on right now, and what do you see out of Washington, D.C.?
Well, probably most recently you saw the reauthorization of 702 yesterday, 702 authority under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. That's something that we reauthorized yesterday to make sure that the intelligence community has what they need to be able to pursue bad guys on the battlefield in foreign countries. And it's a critical counterintelligence tool, counterterrorism tool, and so we were able to get that done. And we've got to fund the government. That'll start to ramp up next week. We'll start to see that, and of course, everybody's talking about immigration and the border wall and things like that. Mm-hmm. So there's an awful lot to do early on in this year.
Yeah. So on the FISA stuff, I've always followed that. Do you buy any of the concerns about Americans getting swept up, innocent Americans getting swept up in that sort of thing?
There are an awful lot of safeguards to prevent that kind of thing from happening, and so I think people should probably be more concerned about their online shopping on Amazon or their Google searching than they should be about that. I think you're much more likely to be exposed to privacy violations through those platforms than you are by the federal government. Mm-hmm. And the reason that is because there are so many safeguards and so much oversight. Your listeners may or may not know. Last year I was put on the Intelligence Committee, and so we have the jurisdiction along with the Judiciary Committee to help reauthorize these programs. And the learning curve is pretty steep, and I've spent the last year just familiarizing myself and trying to get a better understanding of how FISA works and what 702 prescribes under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And so to better clarify and illustrate why it's so important in real time, if you had, let's say, for example, you had a squad of Marines that, came upon a cave in Afghanistan, and there were several cell phones in that cave. And they need the information on that cell phone or those cell phones. And they need it in real time. They need to be able to say what information is on this cell phone that can protect my fellow Marines on the battlefield, number one, mm-hmm. in a tactical environment. So that helps the tactical commanders in real time. And number two, what information could this contain in it that might assist from the strategic standpoint in how we continue to prosecute the war on terror? Now, here's where we run into some potential conflicts. This information is held by and transmitted by foreign entities. However, they might have an email address that's a Gmail account or a Yahoo account. And so this is where we make sure that the entities in question, the enemy combatants, the foreign nationals, that we're only monitoring their transmissions. Now, if for some reason those transmissions were received by a U.S. citizen, then you would require a warrant to go any further in collecting or unmasking that individual in question. Hmm. So the real thing here, now FISA is broad and it's different, and there are some issues with FISA that have to be reformed, but 702 is not necessarily the issue. 702 is an important tactical tool, and it is an informative strategic aid in helping to develop policy that
Yeah.
helps to exploit intelligence against foreign targets.
Congressman Rick Crawford, I really appreciate you coming on. I got a confession. I've done a really poor job of managing my clock, and so I'm up against a hard break that I have to take for the affiliates. And so I look forward to doing this again in a couple of weeks, and I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Sure thing. Good to talk to you.
Yes, sir. All right, folks, we got to take a break. Back in just a moment.